Ys, the grandfather of the action RPG series, and a series that is still going strong to this day. There's plenty of bosses to cover, and plenty of games to talk about. But for today, we'll just be looking at the first game where the series started. Anyways, enough rambling, let's go. For all the hatred that I have for the next entry on the list, I just couldn't put this boss anywhere but the bottom. There's no design here, it shits out projectiles in random directions, and there's no way to play this fight safely, and even if you are patient, you can get hit by the rocks that he fires off in the opposite direction, because fuck you, I guess. So you can take any strategy that you may have and throw it in the fucking trash. Because the best way to win this fight is to repeatedly run small figure eights inside the boss, since he doesn't do contact damage unlike other bosses, and you don't bounce off him after hurting him. You just rush this boss as best you can and pray he dies before you do. This fight's awful. While I would say Consklard is an objectively worse boss fight, this fucking bat is my most hated boss in the game. All he's gonna do is divide into a bunch of bats and fly around. In bat form, he can either fly randomly, which is annoying, or he can clump together, which shreds your HP if you get caught in the middle. He also has the bats charge directly towards you, which honestly isn't too bad. It's decently telegraphed, and it can be a chance to retaliate. The problem is, you can only damage the boss when his body fully forms and his hitbox is his feet. May sound like a weirdly specific thing to note, but it becomes a serious problem when he's only vulnerable for half a second, because for some reason, the second his wings start folding back in, his hitbox will disappear. And just because the bats come together doesn't mean he's guaranteed to reform. Sometimes they'll just stay together for a bit then spread out again without ever giving you an attack window. Thankfully, the Chronicle version did make the fight a little bit easier because Vagion now has a small sound and visual cue for when he's about to reform, so at least you'll know when it's time to charge back into danger. It beats out Consklard mainly because while it can take a while, the fight doesn't run down to just luck, but it will test your patience and it will make you hate yourself. Seriously, this boss is awful, and it brings down the game quite a bit. It's the final battle of the game, and good lord, this fight is hard. But the music is really good, and that's actually kind of a shame, because it's only going to last about 30 seconds when you successfully beat the boss. The fight is absolute bullet hell, and it took me the better part of 50 tries to take him out in this playthrough. I could see this being a bottom tier fight for most people, and honestly, I could see it being worse than Consklard or Vagion for most people. But at the very least, his attacks don't really shred your HP, and I kinda like the little trick this final boss pulls where instead of the ultimate equipment being the best way to take him out, you need to swap back to the silver equipment for this fight. He's also one of only 3 bosses in the game that actually has a proper difficulty curve going on, which you may or may not like the gimmick of. So every time you hit him, pits will open up in the floor where you were, meaning if you stand still, you will instantly die. Thankfully, there's no way for you to run into the pits. They're really only going to instantly kill you if you stand still. But it can be a major problem if you end up accidentally cutting off half the arena for you, and that's kind of why this fight gets so low on the list. Admittedly, though, the good music and the fact the boss bounces around like a DVD logo, which I find funny, is what gets this fight higher than the other 2 entries. It's not a good final boss by any means, but, well, let's just say they actually got that right in the next game. The first boss makes it halfway up the list, huh? Well, yeah. It's a simple boss, but it's the first boss, in a game that was originally made in 1987. I think the whole flame pillars aspect that forces you to pick your openings and be careful is a cool idea. There's not really much else going on here, but it's good simplicity for a fight that you'll reach within less than an hour upon starting the game. The biggest problem, however, is his HP is extremely low, not even reaching halfway to the full HP bar. If you're properly geared up and leveled, he'll even go down in a single shot, which is hilarious, but it also throws any mechanics the boss may have out the window. This boss only has one single, very straightforward attack, and that is running right into you. So why on earth is it in the top 3? Well, for one, the fight's actually balanced. For 2, it's a faster paced boss than a lot of the other ones, and while it's simple, it's cool. Not to mention, it has a lot more story significance as it's the first boss guarding the Book of Ys, and taking it down, this is the first major monster that Adol brings down in his very, very long story. Not exactly high praise for what's the 3rd best boss in the game, but hey, this was made in 1987, so we gotta work with what we have here, folks. I wasn't really sure if I should put this boss at the top of decent tier or the bottom of good tier, so instead I'm splitting the difference. Anyways, this fight's actually pretty solid. Only the yellow head will take damage, the blue head is just there to hurt you, and dealing damage to the heads will cause them to swap places, and with the 4 orbs surrounding each head, you will need to time when you go in for an attack, unlike other bosses where you use Reckless Abandon, and the boss has enough HP that it won't just get bursted down. So you need to engage with mechanics, which is nice. Interestingly, this boss does have a difficulty curve, but instead of becoming stronger, it actually becomes much easier as the fight goes on, because the more damage it takes, the orbs surrounding it will start to decrease as the boss weakens, and I have to wonder if this was intentional, a glitch, or if someone at Falcom just thought it was funny. Either way, it's a solid enough fight for the second to last boss of the game. When I started making this video, I was actually considering combining Ys 1 and 2's bosses together for this ranking, but then I realized Pictomos would be the only boss that would make it into the top half from Ys 1, so that's why I decided I would split the 2 games. This boss is simple, but sometimes a simple design is all you need. He'll move from left to right, and if you try to attack him from the front, you're going to get a scythe in your face. So the answer is to alternate between attacking his 2 sides and dodging through the sickles he throws at you during the fight. Early on, he'll throw them all out at once, but as he grows weaker, he'll save his 3rd sickle to catch you off guard. If you're not paying attention, then that shakeup will give the fight a proper difficulty progression, and it does make it fun. The music's also really good. It doesn't overextend into bullshit like some fights, but as far as fair difficulty goes, it's the toughest in the game. And I think it's a good way to make sure the player's ready for the endgame. There's nothing else to say other than this fight's just genuinely really good. Compared to everything else in the game, it's fantastic. And by far the best boss from Ys 1. Thank you so much for watching the video. While Ys 1 definitely has the weakest boss lineup in the entire series, except maybe Ys 5, but we'll get to that when we get to that. It's still a fun time to play through, and I say the game overall is quite good. I decided to make a boss ranking for this game because I figured I would honestly want to cover the entire series, and it would be important to show where we started. Because trust me, it only gets better from here, and once we get into the later games, you're going to be seeing some amazing fights. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope you stick around for the rest of this journey. Anyways, thank you for watching, and see you guys later.